what exactly is your job on Quantum League?
So we're a small team. So my job is I started out as principal designer, um, but then mutated to producer, director, and as development went on. So you could say I'm now kind of like a game director type.
Awesome. It must have been pretty exciting to have your game featured on an Indie World showcase. How did that happen?
Well, so it kind of was out of the blue. So our company's CEO met with Nintendo people at DICE, I believe, and then we got an email and from Nintendo, and they tell you, okay, you're on a deadline now. Welcome, and you need to deliver all of these footage and kind of like documents and stuff. And be sure to like follow these guidelines. Make sure to send all these footage to ESRB to be vetted. And I looked at my team and I went like, okay, guys, this could be like a lot of work, but we could be featured on the Nintendo in the Direct. And they went like, okay, let's do it.
Was it down to the wire?
No, I mean yes, for one bit yes. So it was for once because you need to have the footage approved for all the audiences, like for advertising with all audiences, and it's a shooter game, and it's not maybe what comes across as much in the footage that we did end up showing in Nintendo, because the initial footage was all based on like first person perspective, a view, like shooting other players and stuff like that. And the rating agency came back and said, no, that's not going to fly. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. We scrambled to find alternate footage. This was like 2 weeks before the actual airing of the footage, but it was like down the line to the final minute of the deadline. So it kind of was a mad rush up until the end.
It always ends up being that way. So what rating are you expecting to get from ESRB?
So actually, we already have our rating. It's a teen game,
okay.
So 12 plus. But the and it's a game that we will always like meant to build it to be accessible to most audiences. Like what's even going up, like what's acceptable, like with a gun in terms of feel, without going like into the blood territory and stuff like that. So we've always been stranding that line between, okay, we want the shooting to feel good, but we don't want to go into the ultra violence bit, so that we stay in a like audience friendly environment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But it is difficult because then you go like, I want like to give this shotgun like a good feel, a good punch, and you go like, okay, but you can't really spray anything, so it has to be like, we don't want to go cartoon as well, so we need to find like a middle ground that works, and but it's really interesting, nevertheless.
So you're making a first-person shooter, which is kind of a vanilla thing, but then you're completely upending it and changing it to make it something completely different and unique. It's a time travel first-person shooter. Can you explain the mechanics for the listeners?
I can try. So the mechanics are quite simple if you think of it in movie terms. So you remember the movie Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah.
So Bill Murray is stuck in the same day over and over, and he can't really get out, and he gets like, he starts knowing what's going to happen before it does happen. And so we're kind of like doing that, but as also we're each time you like Bill Murray in this case starts a new day, he sees himself walking around in the previous day.
Oh, okay. So so he can see the other copies of Bill Murray.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so you're kind of Bill Murray in this case. So you're the player, and this happens. You know that this will happen 3 times. This is kind of like the magic number that we found during development. That's like deep enough to have like weird time travel effects, but not as confusing to like leave you scratching at your head and having you to look at a spreadsheet of your timelines to know what they're doing.
Right, because
So
you have to remember everything that you did before, right?
exactly. So you need to be quick, and the other player, because it's a multiplayer shooter, is doing the same thing in front of you. So what you end up having is you have, by the end of a round, you have like 2 live players who are fighting each other, but also you have 4, so 2 per side, time clones of the both players who are repeating what the players did in the previous iterations of the time loop.
Okay, so how long is the time loop then?
A time loop is actually really short. It's depending on the level, it's between 10 and 20 seconds.
So a match of Quantum League should be over fairly quickly then.
Yes, there are quick matches. It's between 5 minutes and 10 for like the most casual modes, and then competitive modes can go up to 15. But that it gets really involving and a bit taxing on your brain if you go like longer loops. So we're always trying to find the sweet spot between complexity and fun, so that you don't feel overwhelmed and you can have fun, and also because one of the things that we want to achieve is that, as I was saying, I don't want players to sit down with a spreadsheet or like a drawing on the wall with lines, you know what they've been. I want players to feel like they are the time travelers and they are seeing time travel from their perspective. So they're just taking like decisions in the heat of the moment and go, oh, I will try to do this, and oh, it didn't work, so I need to fix it somehow. And that's the feeling that I'm trying to get. So it's not something I found often. So in the time travel games or time loop games that we often know about and that we get as reference, time travel is seen from the outside. So you see like the characters is time traveling, but you as the player are not. So we're trying to reverse that feeling and give you the feeling of you're actually time traveling.
All right, so anytime time travel comes up, there's always the problem where you may cause a paradox. So let's say that okay, so you said there's 3 rounds. So in round 1, I do thing A, and in round 2, you kill my round 1 clone.
Yes. So
and then what happens in round 3 if I kill you before you kill? If I kill your round 2 clone before you kill my round 1 clone, how does that work?
Okay, so the way it works is actually when who started killing who? Sorry.
Well, okay. So round 1.
Let's
go ahead.
Sorry. Let's shift the example as I was saying to the player's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So you're playing round 1, okay? And I do. Let's say I kill your round 1 first. What happens when you die? So when your clone dies, is actually you get to keep playing in what we call the desynchronized state. So you're actually doing, like, to me, you're dead, but you are performing actions, and you're running, and you're grabbing stuff. It doesn't really happen yet, but will give you confirmation that if you manage to, like, change the timeline in the way you describe, then those things will happen in the future. So what I give you is a way to actually keep doing, like, stuff, so you're always playing the same 10 seconds. Is if you die, you don't quit early, you just like keep playing, because that's the full timeline that your time clone will have to perform if you save me. And the cool part is that I killed you, but I don't know what's going to happen. So I have it's an advantage and an advantage to use well if you can use it, because you know stuff that your clone is going to do, but I don't know about easily. I have ways to find out, but it's much more complicated for me. So I can either like wait around and try to guess where he's going to be and like lay down some suppressing fire, or just like, okay, this has happened here, so I can try to like do something else elsewhere. And
so when
you see where it gets complicated, basically.
Yeah. So when I'm desynced, do I know that I've been killed?
Yes, you actually see it. And,
okay.
And that's the point where you can actually start taking different decisions, because you know that from that point on, that desynced clone will mostly be affecting like the clone number 2 and 3 of the opponent. Because for the clone number 1, he's already dead. So you start taking these like they're kind of like counterintuitive at first, but you get into it and you start taking these strategies like, okay, so sometimes you actually want to die. Like we have some experienced players, and it's actually like who kill themselves in a way that they can prevent easily afterwards, so that they do it so that they play while desynced, and then easily like cancel it so that they can actually play. So your strategy there is you have to try to prevent the death of the number one clone before your opponent prevents his death, so that you can see what he's doing and try to prevent it in the second round. So it is something that gets really deep, really fast, and it's something that's both like a blessing and a curse, because then when we try to add like standard FPS things, like okay, once we went like, okay, let's try to add like a catch the flag kind of mode. What, like, I mean, how bad can it get? It gets really bad. Not bad in a bad sense, but bad in a sense that it's one of the most complex ones, and that we're still figuring out how to explain it to players, because you also need to be tracking in the timeline as well how the chain of events with the flag will turn out, so that you know who's going to have the flag at one point, or you can try to make sure you give the flag at one of your clones at one point, so that he has it when he gets to the point.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. What modes are in the game? So you got capture the flag. What else?
So capture the flag is not in the game because, as I mentioned, it's still one of the developer challenge mode. What we have playable is a free for all. So you earn points by making sure that you have more clones alive than your opponent. That's straightforward, but it still gets complex because we have mechanics to revert a desync, so you can resync your clone. And we also have like our main mode at the moment is a capture point kind of mode. So you have a central point in different levels, and you need to be alive on the point by the end of the clock. So if you're there by the end of the clock, then you score. If you're not like alone then you get an extension round, basically.
Oh, okay. So like, let's say we're playing against each other, and you have two clones on the capture point at the end, and I have one, then you win. But if we have the same number of clones on the capture point, then we go to a fourth round.
So we did actually. That's like, yeah, we were like at the moment we're splitting the modes into like more casual ones. So that's the more casual one. The most competitive one is that if you manage to get at least 1 foot in, it's a cancel point. It needs to be exclusive. So that gives like many last minute dashes to the points to make sure that I get there and etc. So it's like more exciting, but it's also more difficult to explain, because it's like, okay, but I mean, in this game often it goes at the very last minute, a minute is a long time.
Yeah.
A very last second, so you think you have it, and then some guy revives from nowhere and then makes the mad dash to the point, like disregarding your fire, and then gets to it, and then you know that he got an extension. So we're really like trying to get a feeling that it's a sports game more than a shooting game. That kind of like Hail Mary moves, or like last minute shot at the very last millisecond, and you hit the bullets flying in the air in slow motion, and it connects right at the very end, so you save it and you get an extension. It's that kind of feeling that we're going after for. So
is Quantum League going to have cross-platform play?
Yes, actually we already have it. We'll probably, but for like fairness purposes, we're going to limit it to at the first between PCs and consoles, so PC and consoles between them, and if everything goes smoothly and people are happy with our implementation of the joystick controls, we'll open it up to everyone with an option.
Okay.
So you can, if you choose, play against PC players and match up against them.
Does it match based on, are you going to be doing matching based on the input that people are using or the platform that they're using? So for instance, if I'm using a gamepad on a PC, would I just be able to match up with other gamepad players, or would I be in with mouse and keyboard players no matter what?
So we're going to try to have that, but it's not. I mean, we have input based, but it's not a it's not a priority one matchmaking variable.
Understood.
So it's a lower priority. We're trying to find the first priority is trying to find people in your skill range, because in this kind of game, like if you played one match and I played two, I have a huge advantage on you already. And not even mentioning if I played 3 matches. And then it evens out, like at 5 or 10, beyond that. But then you start having like plays that we as devs were like amazed that we saw. Like we had a closed beta, and we're really amazed of what players were putting off. We never really imagined that they could do stuff like that. So it goes crazy pretty fast. So we're really trying to have give you a first match first, because it's not as much a game that relies on your precision with a gun. I mean, I can be the best aiming guy, like nailing my headshots every time. But if you kind of think ahead of me, then you know that, hey, maybe I won't be even there when you shoot at me, or I don't care because then I will revive and you will have spent your headshots or something like that. So it's something where knowing the game, it's like more like a card game, you know?
Yeah.
Where your knowledge of the game is almost as important as your actual skill playing it.
Is the game going to require Nintendo Switch Online in order to play online?
Well, that I can't confirm yet, but it's still being discussed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Is there I thought I remembered reading that there was 1v1 and 2v2. Am I correct in reading that?
Exactly. That is correct. We have 2v2. It's super fun.
Is there a voice chat?
So there will be voice chat in the future as well. So we're as I mentioned, we're a small team, so we can't really roll out our own solution for this. So we need to get a middleware one and make sure that it's it has rights for every platform and it works correctly and it has the SDK approved and everything. So it takes a little bit more time from the producing side and not as much from the development side. So it's kind of basically a lot of emails and going back and forth. And then when you give the SDK to developer, he goes one day and okay, that's it, it's working.
There you go. Okay, that's cool. So getting rid of voice chat altogether, is there a possibility that I could sit down, my friend and I sitting on a couch playing local split screen against somebody else playing local split screen?
That's one of our things that we would love. It really depends mostly on performance. So we're still ramping up development, and the game will release first on PC during the early access open beta, and then we'll try to even out any kinks that we have there, and then make sure that we understand the problems of performance on certain matches, and then at that point we'll consider doing split screen. It's something that it's really fun when you do a split screen, because you can give directions to the. So we tried it on the same in a computer with 2 viewports, and it does work. But you can give directions to what you're watching, what the other one's doing, and you go no, try to go right, save my guy. And yeah, that's super fun. You scream stuff that you never thought you would have screamed, basically.
Are you targeting 30 or 60 frames per second for the Nintendo Switch version, or is that still up in the air?
That's as well, still up in the air. We're trying. I mean, you've seen the game. It's not the aesthetics are friendly for try to get the best performance that we can on every platform. So we're trying to get it on 60 if we can. We're already pretty close actually, so it's not something that's far out of our reach, but we do want to make sure that it's working on every level at the same level of stability.
Yeah, that's really important if you're doing cross-platform, because one of the advantages that a PC person might have is that they'd be 60 frames per second and I'm playing at 30 frames per second because I'm on Switch, and now suddenly I'm at a huge disadvantage. So it's really good to hear that you're trying to go for that parity across platforms. That's awesome.
Well, it did happen to me, so I know how it feels, and I can convey that to the team as well, and yeah, it happened to them.
What's your target price for the game on Switch, if you can say that yet?
It is not higher than $20, $25. It is. We don't consider that it's a $30 game, so it's less than that.
Any
That's the only thing
microtransactions?
Not yet. No, not as well.
Not yet,
So-
or no?
Not we don't, I can't even confirm that. It's
Oh,
so
okay.
early. So we do have, for instance, making microtransactions and maintaining it is actually something that currently out of our technical range of expertise.
Oh, okay.
It is the same thing as voice chat. So we're really we're mostly gameplay programmers, and we're starting to get our feet wet into the server backend, not a gameplay server, but like a backend server and transactions and logins and everything. So this is in full honesty. I wouldn't even dream of saying yes to microtransactions because I don't even know if we can offer it in a way that doesn't break everything.
Mm-hmm.
And especially across 3 different platforms. So my go-to answer at the moment is no, and that's the simplest one.
Yeah.
But I would need to add it, not for the foreseeable future.
I like the clarity there, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
So what games inspired you to make Quantum League?
So obviously, I've been playing a lot of these kind of games. But the weird answer is that we actually started from a different genre as well. The studio I was in before has just shipped a XCOM-like game,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss went okay, we could reuse all our expertise if we do another game of this kind. But I know FPSs are big at the moment, so could we do an XCOM game as an FPS? And I was like, what? You can't do that. The first answer usually go no, that's not possible. And then any good bosses consider it anyway, because I'm your boss. I'm telling you to do it, and it could be nice. So I sit down and I go okay, what's the good part about XCOMs? Well, when you have your turn and you send your guy, but then your guy discovers something, but then the other guys know about that, and they can go okay, no, I've been surprised, but I can flank that guy with another one. So they kind of share information in some way, and I go okay, so we need to do that, but in an FPS. But in FPS, you have full perspective. There's no fog of war, so you can, if something's in front of you, you can see it. Doesn't matter if you have visibility range 20 or 10. You can see it. It's there. It's in front of you. So I go okay, how would it work? And then it would really suck if it's not actually real time, because FPSs are not known to be fun if you're not in real time. And I go how could I combine these two things? If they're in a time loop, it could work. And then I had no idea. I wrote that down, told it to my boss, and I went, oh no, that's a super nerdy idea. We're not going to do that. And I kind of forgot about it actually until a bit later. So it kind of started from getting that tactical feeling from XCOM games into an FPS. That's
awesome.
where the time loop entered. Yeah. And then I started researching, and actually the thing that I found that was the most close to something that could have worked is a video from Corridor Digital. It's called Clock Blockers. So clock, that's the pun, I guess.
Yes, thank you for pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, I did my best effort. If you can bleep me if you want. And so that actually, if you look it up, it's it's two guys who activate their clones, and the clones do stuff, and it's actually what I gave the developers, and they went at the time it was one developer, and I was wouldn't it be cool to have this as a video game? And he looks at me and I go, that's crazy, it's not gonna work. But we did get some time in a week to do a quick prototype in Unity, and it was and then the same developer was, that this could work. and so it started from that. And then obviously when you make a video, it's not the things that are fun in a video are not fun in a video game. So we started finding all these holes that we couldn't plug. And then at that point, we started looking at other games who did like a similar thing. Braid was not really into stuff that we could use, but there was Super Time Force Ultra from Capybara Games, and that was actually super informative to the challenge that we were up against. So like these kind of paradoxes that you can try to fix, and they had like a huge number of clones that you had to manage, but then you didn't really need to because they were all your allies. And then there was also it's an old PSP game. It's called Echochrome, I think, or the other one, the one that came after that. Sorry, don't remember the name. And that one as well has you like moving clones to solve puzzles. And then I also remembered an old Flash game that I had played like a way back. It's Cursor 10. I don't know if you remembered it.
No.
Oh, it's like you're a mouse cursor, and then you have 10 iterations of your mouse cursor, and you need to like progress as much as possible in a puzzle environment, like holding down a button to open a gate so that your mouse can pass.
Okay. So like you would click on a gate with one cursor, and then the next cursor can go through the gate after it's been opened. Okay, that sounds cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but the problem is none of these experiences are multiplayer. So actually, the video was the closest thing to multiplayer that we found, and that's kind of like the whole like bag of inspiration thing that we've been playing with since.
That sounds awesome.
It was pretty fun, getting here.
All right, so last question, and then I'll let you get out of here. First off, thank you for hanging out with me, but here's my last question. Favorite time machine?
I would need to say the TARDIS.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Hands down the TARDIS.
I don't think that there can be a bad answer to that question, but okay. What's the worst answer that you can think of then? Because it seems like you think that there's a bad answer.
Yeah, no, it's the ones that don't are boring time machines. So like the original HD World time machine is boring because it just gets you in trouble and doesn't get you out of trouble. So it's kind of it's kind of well, you're here now, like better make the best of it. And yeah, this is why I like the TARDIS. I like the DeLorean, obviously, because they get you in and out of trouble.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me, Balthazar. It was really wonderful talking to you. And do we know when the game is coming out?
No, late 2020.
Late 2020. All right. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I appreciate it.
Oh no, it's been super fun for me. Thank you.